Yes, go ahead, please. Yeah,
Yes, James.
I'm ready.
So, welcome to the third episode of Laughing Over Lapwood, and it's pleasure to have you on the podcast. Given your rich experience, I am sure there is lot to learn. So let's start from your journey. If you can quickly tell everyone how your journey in pharmaceutical was, and what motivated you to be in this pharmaceutical industry.
Okay, Anirudh, thanks very much for giving me the opportunity to, have this chat with you and your listeners as well. You're right. I have learned a lot, and I'm still learning. And Anirudh, I'm 62 years old, and I do not believe in this, saying that you cannot teach old dogs new tricks, because every day I'm learning something. So what got me, doing what I'm doing now is that I started off my pharma career way back in '87, and it was a local company that was, an agent for some multinationals. So that's where I started, and then from there I went into big pharma. And over the 30 years I've been doing this now, since '87, I started off as a sales rep, and then I moved into product management. And I was doing that for 7 years, Anirudh. And one day there was a vacancy in the organization, and I went to my boss, and he had, posted the vacancy, and a lot of us were applying. I didn't get the job. And I was a bit disappointed because I had my MBA, and I thought having the MBA would mean that, all the doors are going to be open. And he told me something. You do not have people experience. And I asked him, so how do I get people experience? And he told me, you should do sales management the next time there's a vacancy. And sure enough, within, I think, 12 months, a vacancy opened up. I approached him and he said, okay, fine, go and do that. And so I jumped into sales management, and I've enjoyed people management far more than product management. And eventually, as I went through all the other companies, and handling different types of products, including vaccines, which was my last stop, I've come to realize that dealing with people or working with people should be the priority for any company, not just pharma companies, but any organization. And you asked me why pharma? Simply because, that's where my experience is. I've had 38 years, or actually it was 37 when I started this, working with pharma founders. And working with big pharma, Anirudh, one thing I realized is that there are many people and media who constantly hit pharma, for, what they perceive as bad things that pharma does. So I decided that, big pharma has got all the resources, but the small pharma founders do not have sufficient resources, and that's where I could help them. So this became a calling for me, Anirudh, and that's why I work with pharma founders now.
This is so interesting, James. I can understand that. And of course, you're coming to your point. I have also seen that what happens when people are very good when they're working alone. That they are fabulous. They are talented. But after certain time in industry, you really cannot work alone. You have to develop that people skill. You have to know about how to manage people. So coming to this point, James, how do you see the talent in pharmaceuticals, and what are your views on that? What have you seen in the industry so far about the talent?
Yeah, so Anirudh, what come to realize since I started this, I call it a project or a calling, since August last year, I've been in, contact with many pharma founders globally, in India, in Australia, in Africa, Europe, and North America. And what I've come to realize is many of the pharma founders, um, they are either engineers, or they're IT people, or they're in operations, or R&D, and they have an idea, and therefore they jump into, forming a company, an enterprise. Um, but they do not think through carefully how to form their organization. So the first thing they do is, okay, let me just go and do some R&D, get somebody on board, or get or outsource it,
Yeah.
and then um, as they are going through the drug development and clinical trials, that's when they realize, oops, I need to have people in this role, in that role, or even if you outsource, at the end of the day, you got to make sure that the people you're working with gel with you. Otherwise, if there is no connection, there is no match, it's going to fail. So that is one part of talent. I mean, the second part is when they are, trying to get talent, and this is based on my experience over the years in pharma, my personal experience, is that talent is a very tricky word. A lot of people have different definitions of talent. For me, a talent means, getting the right person in the right role and then developing them and doing things that will retain them in your organization. So for me, that is what talent is.
So,
And
so
and and of course, the Anirudh, is that you will never know ultimately whether it's the right person you're getting or not. But
yes,
there are certain strategies and techniques you can undertake to ensure that the wrong person doesn't join. And of course, being humans, we all will make mistakes. There will be a wrong hire, but what are you going to do with that
yeah,
wrong hire?
yeah,
Do you
yeah,
keep that person there, which usually happens because we feel bad that we don't want to release the wrong person, but we may be doing them a favor as well.
yeah.
If we speak to them properly and tell them, look, this is probably a wrong match, and let's separate.
I absolutely agree with you, James. We will come back, we will go to the strategies section as well. But as of now, what makes talent acquisition and retention so challenging in pharmaceutical industry? And have you experienced any industry specific factors playing into it?
Yeah, I think there's definitely some industry-specific factors for certain roles, Anirudh. But generally, I won't say that this is only related to pharma companies. But if you just look at pharma, I think R&D is going to be one of the major areas where there's going to be issues with attracting talent. Two things that I can foresee. One is if you are a new startup or you're growing and you don't have any products commercialized yet. You're looking for an R&D person that you want to employ. I think the first question in their mind is, will your company be sustainable or will you close down in 5 years' time? Knowing that R&D in pharma before you commercialize can take anywhere in the past. It would take 20 years,
Yeah,
10 to 20 years. But now, I guess with AI, and I've seen this, the process has been shortened so much that you can probably, and still AI is still in the nascent state for pharma, you can probably introduce a product much faster. No longer 20 years, but maybe 10, maybe, if you are lucky, 5 years if you do the right things, if you work with the right, company. So that is one. So it is for that role, R&D, that could be one. That they doubt if your company can actually sustain.
yeah,
Now, second thing is, of course, if you are looking for an R&D person who has got lots of experience, their question is, do you have the resources that will help me do my role, function in my role effectively? So I would see these two as industry specific. But other roles, like for example, supply chain, I don't think there is anything that is specific to pharma or finance or even sales and marketing.
yeah,
Well, marketing, probably you need to get somebody with some sort of an experience, someone who has got experience marketing within the pharma industry. Sales, I have not seen sales as a big issue because I've employed sales reps who were never in the industry, Anirudh. I've employed sales reps who were fresh graduates,
yeah.
and I've seen them shine actually. As long as you know what needs to be done, how to develop them, you'll be fine.
So there comes that leadership thing as well, because how the mentor is or how your boss's leader is, that makes a lot of difference to make anyone shine. It's important.
Oh
So
yes, everything is boils down to leadership. Sorry,
yes.
I interrupted you.
No, no, no. So I was coming to this, that you have been in coaching for some time now, and you have come up with a system for talent management. Tell us about the system you have designed.
Okay, now there's a background to that as well, Anirudh. Earlier I said none of us are perfect. We will make mistakes, and what made me, create this system was that in my last organization, and I'm talking about 2008, uh, I I had employed a sales rep, and it was based a lot on emotions, huh? Anirudh. Don't misunderstand
No, no, no.
when
I
I say
absolutely
it's
get your
based
point.
it's not that, this was an attractive lady that I had employed. Not that I had fallen in love with her or anything like that. But what my mind was thinking in this way, that this is an attractive lady, and therefore she would be successful with a specific set of doctors, probably the male doctors. She will be able to get the message across because she's attractive. And also she had the right education. If I'm not mistaken, I think she was in mass comm or something like that. So my mind said, okay, mass comm means you should be good in communication, right? And therefore, I employed her. Uh, but the sales manager who she was going to be reporting to had some hesitation. Said, "Boss, I think she may not be able to fulfill the role because of this, this, this." And I kind of overrode him and I said, look, let's go ahead with this. And believe it or not, Anirudh, 6 months later, 6 or 9 months later, we had to let her go,
Oh,
because she just couldn't, fit the role. So I'm coming from that mistake. And based on my experiences over the years in pharma and also based on research, Anirudh, I came up with a system which I call the five rights wheel. And the five rights wheel basically is a system to attract and retain talent. And it can be used for all roles, actually. That's my advice to all clients. And so the first right is actually the right person. And I'm sure, Anirudh, you have also gone through this. You find the wrong person, and whatever else you do, it will never work
yeah.
because the fit is just not there. You can struggle, you can do whatever. So the right person is extremely important, and that would basically mean doing a proper job description and also what I call job specifications, or a lot of people say job requirements. So once you get these right, then your process of getting this right talent, the interviews, the psychometric testing or assessments and whatever else, you will know exactly what needs to be done. And of course there will still be errors. So but you will get the right person the majority of the time. And
Can
of
I
course,
interrupt
getting
you
the right
for one
person.
second, James? So this is
Sorry.
such a valid point you have mentioned, because I have seen that to get a right person, it's not only about finding the correct person, but it is also about how much are you prepared to look for the right person. Are you just what you said? Are you doing thorough job description? Do you really know what you're looking for in a person? Who will exactly fit in that role? Because if the interviewee or the leader in the team does not do his homework, it's difficult to identify just by interviewing people. This is very, very correct what you have mentioned. Yes.
And Anirudh, you're right, because it's not just the hiring manager's role to get the job description and specifications, but also the HR. So when HR plays a strategic role, things become a lot easier. And now, Anirudh, with AI for any role, you can just develop the job description and what are the tasks and what are
Yeah.
the outcomes. It's so much easier now
Yeah.
compared to those days.
Very
And
good.
and uh, and I was just about to also say, besides, getting the right person, once you got the right person, what's next? So you got to do the second phase, which is the right training. And that would mean onboarding as well. And a lot of companies just do onboarding and leave it as
Yeah.
such. But every role, you got to develop the right training and also the continuous training, and development. How should we develop these people? That is the second, piece of the puzzle. The third one is everybody needs a KPI. So there are a lot of organizations, where the KPI is only given for certain roles, sales, marketing, supply chain,
Yes.
but they forget the other. Sometimes HR, they are not given the right, KPIs. So everybody needs a KPI because I think it was Peter Drucker who said, if you cannot measure, you cannot manage.
Yeah. 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 True.
Everybody needs to be managed. Although people hate that word manage now, they want everyone to be a leader. But at the end of the day, we are still managing. We need those KPIs to ensure that the performance management system is in place. Following that would be coaching, and that is something that I found, Anirudh, a lot of companies don't do. Even when I was in big pharma, at that time when I left in 2008, some of the big pharma companies were just starting to teach their leaders how to coach. I don't know how prevalent it is today, but I can tell you a lot of small pharma companies or pharma founders don't do that because, and a lot of people think that having a chat with someone is coaching. It is not. They are on the wrong track when they do that. And the final piece of this five rights wheel, and is rewards. And rewards could be financial, non-financial. We hear nowadays about people saying, "Oh, you got to celebrate small wins or every win." So that's a form of rewards as well, not just your salary or your incentives and bonuses. So uh, that's what the whole five rights wheel is, and the wheel basically is to remind people that you will need to adapt according to changing environment, changing roles. you know there'll be market forces that will force you to make changes, so you've got to continuously be adapting.
When you say about rewarding James, what do you think about the failures? How a leader can take the failure and in his team, how one should react to it?
You refer to rewarding
No,
people.
a failure. Rewarding, okay, I understand rewarding, but what when there is a failure?
Oh, oh yes, okay. This is very, very critical, and it was because this now you're bringing up something about the culture of an organization, and a lot of organizations, they do not like people failing because they feel that failing means total breakdown of the organization. But if they have a mindset where failure is actually steps to success, and as long as you fail and you learn from it, that's fine. And I think this is where all leaders, not just in pharma, but in any organization, need to understand we have to allow our people to experiment, to fail, because if not, you will never, improve. But that's a concept that I see in R&D roles is not a big issue, because in R&D you will fail. Out of the 20 new chemical entities that you may come up with, only one would be successful. And that too, you find out after 10 years of doing clinical studies.
Yes.
Your pilot study and your phase one may be successful, but then later on you realize, whoops, it doesn't work. So yeah, I think as long as leaders need to have a change in their mindset that failure is acceptable and encouraged, and we must celebrate failures as well. As long as a leader will challenge the person who has failed and ask them, what did you learn? How will you ensure that this is not repeated, in a similar scenario? I think that's where the learning is. That was a great question, Anirudh.
But it's amazing to learn about the five right in the wheel. It's nice to learn. Then again
Yes.
coming back to the talent, James. How do you define top talent in pharma? And what qualities or skills should leader prioritize when building their team?
Sorry, the last part I lost you.
Yeah, I
When?
was coming to this again to the talent point. So, how do you define top talent in pharma? And what qualities or skills should the leader have, the skill set the leader should have, which prioritizes to build their team?
Oh, right. Okay. So I think regarding the definition, for me, the definition is very simple. Anirudh. Top talent, I would define it as everyone who achieves 100% of their goal for that year. And
Yeah.
if the person doesn't achieve, I would not consider the person top talent at all. They have the skills, but they are not, as long as they don't achieve your goals, I wouldn't consider them top talent. They have the talent, but
Yeah.
not enough to be considered as top talent.
Yeah. So,
So, so that comes down to your second point. So, what should a leader do? What's the skill set they need?
correct.
So here again, I will fall back, Anirudh, on how to motivate people, how to engage their people, and that will eventually uh, come back to coaching
Mhm.
and even mentoring is coaching mentoring. A lot of people use these words interchangeably, but there's a huge difference in
Okay.
the sense that coaching is when you are actually challenging your people and getting them to think, not providing the solutions. Sometimes
Now,
mentorship is actually providing solutions
yes.
because you are a person who has got tons of experience and you are mentoring someone junior
Yeah.
to progress in their career. But coaching is very specific that towards their goals, helping them to achieve their goals. So that would mean that the leader needs to have uh, uh, training in how to coach effectively and not provide solutions. Because and this is one area, Anil, especially in sales. You will see that sales managers, especially when they have a new sales rep, what they do is they will provide them all the answers and not help them grow. So and also if you want to keep your talent or your top talent, engaging them is essential. Empowering them is also the second thing. By allowing them to do things, make mistakes, and grow and learn from them.
This is okay. This is new for me. I never thought coaching and mentoring are two different things, but thank you for sharing that. In the same point, James, when you say that people should allow them to make mistakes or give them empowerment, but how should a leader learn about all these things? How can he learn?
I will give you my own experience,
Okay.
Anirudh. The vaccines company that I told you was my last role. I was the operations director there. And there was a vaccine that we were dealing with, actually a typhoid vaccine. And see, the problem with vaccines, unlike, drugs, there's always a huge stock out issue
Mhm.
because we are dealing with biological agents. So they have their own mind as well. Viruses and bacteria. That's
Yes.
what I've come to realize. You cannot, get them to do what you want with chemicals to get, the certain quantity of drugs. You set the right temperature, right pressure, everything is fine. But not with these guys. So I had made an error together with my supply chain guy where we had over ordered Anirudh, and we had to write out $1 million worth of stock because it expired. $1 million. And so I had to go with the bad news to my boss and, told him, look, this is what has happened. And you know what he had done, Anirudh? And I learned from that, and this is what I use now while I'm coaching people. He asked me, okay, what was the reason this error happened? And he didn't ask whether it was my fault or the supply chain person's fault.
Yeah.
He was not interested in that.
Yeah.
All he asked was, cost this, not who caused it, not what caused it. All right. And how will we ensure that this doesn't happen in future? And he didn't give me any answers, Anirudh. He just asked me for feedback. He asked me to give solutions. Okay, and then he and I drew up a plan so that we in future we will do the forecasting properly. Who do we need to get input from to ensure that the forecasting is done right, so that this is avoided? And there's also a contingency. Okay, let's say you got excess vaccines. What are you going to do? And we come to realize that we can send it to our sister companies in the region as well. Right. So we have got a full-fledged plan to ensure that this doesn't happen. And if it does, we know exactly what needs to be done. So I believe that's the way that a leader can learn from their mistakes.
So this is great learning, James. I can easily understand because if he wanted, he could have easily thrown you under the bus and
Oh,
blame
yeah.
it on you. It's so easy to do that. Yeah.
And that was in my mind, Anirudh, when I went to him with the problem. I said, okay, this is my last day probably at the company.
Now, coming to the next important part is about culture and engagement, James. So, how important is company culture in retaining talent, and what steps can a pharma company take to create culture which can thrive high performance talent in the company?
Anirudh, I've got one example I can share with you, but before that
Okay.
example, how important is culture? Culture is I don't think I can say too much when I say that culture is everything about the performance of a company. And if you look at research, it goes anywhere from 40% to 70% in retaining people. And also culture plays a role, Anirudh, in attracting the right talent as well. A lot of people want to join organizations where they see the culture is, that helps you thrive, that helps you grow. Nobody wants to join a toxic environment. So culture is essential for attracting, retaining people. Now, your second question, can you just remind me again,
Yes, it
Anirudh,
is.
what
It
was
is
it?
how a pharma company can build this culture, which can thrive for high talent people, high performance people. How to build it?
Yeah. Okay, so before I go into that, let me just share with you a very bad experience that, well, I didn't personally have it, but it was in one of my clients. And I was working with their leaders, trying to develop the culture in the organization. Now, they had, this is a company which was 80 years old, Anirudh, at that time. So you would expect that they know how to do stuff.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
surprisingly, I mean, they had their values all over the walls of the organization. And usually when I go into a company, first thing I see is their values.
yes,
Because what I do next is I check and see who actually follows these values and who doesn't.
yes.
And in my 12-month interaction with this organization, there was one person who was very toxic and did not follow the values. The value that I'm referring to here is they had something, let's say, we respect people. And people means those stakeholders outside and inside as well, and colleagues, peers. And this leader was very toxic towards another leader. And what I had done, Anirudh, is I had brought this up to the CEO of that organization. And I even brought it up to the regional director, this person's, bosses, because they are the ones who hired me anyway. So I had to report to them. And I was so surprised, Anirudh, when the CEO told me, yes, I know. I know this person is toxic towards that person. And sure enough, Anirudh, the person who was a victim of this toxic leader left the organization.
Oh,
I think within 10 months, 12 months. And you're not going to believe this, Anirudh, when I tell you that the victim was the highest performing leader of this company.
oh, okay.
Oh, that's the downside of not doing anything.
No,
When you have a toxic person. So building the culture, if we are talking about, big pharma companies, they already have their
Yeah.
They are set
Yeah.
values. But if you are a new growing organization, my advice is, first of all, if you are the CEO, it's a small organization, then the values has to be your values.
Okay.
And you got to make sure everybody you employ matches those values. And if they don't, you should not employ them. And then do everything, that you possibly can to build or build up that culture. So you should get the right person. You should do everything to develop the talent of the people according to those values. And if anybody doesn't fit those values, you got to do what it takes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the example I gave you will happen.
Very good. Yes. This
The
is so
wrong
much to
persons,
learn.
the
Yeah.
wrong people thrive, and the right
Yes.
people actually leave.
Yeah. And ultimately,
That's
it's a
my
disaster.
yeah. It will become a disaster. Yeah,
Yes.
and you
So,
can't afford that. Anirudh, in a small organization, if you are a big pharma company, yeah, I mean, you can easily absorb these kind of disasters.
so tell us how pharma company can retain the high talent by developing that culture. What are your views on it?
Okay, but now basically, Anirudh, the five rights wheel
Yeah.
is actually a culture creating system.
Mhm.
Because once you have all those pieces in place and they are running, you're actually building your culture. But to keep the high performers in your organization, help them to thrive, again, I come back to coaching. Because a lot of research, especially done by Gallup, shows that, one of the major issues now globally is that employees are disengaged. And the best way to fix that is to engage them. And engaging them basically means coaching them. So as every time a leader coaches the employee, they are actually, engaging them. And when you engage, you actually motivate them and you are empowering them. And this is when especially high performers will stay. They will stick around. The non-performers may not like this coaching because they may think you're trying to, intrude into their non-performance, and they will get worried. And sure enough, they will leave. And I've had this also, Anirudh, where many years ago, when we started off a CRM system in our organization. Now, we did that simply because we wanted the reps to, perform much better. But you're not going to believe this, Anirudh. The day we announced that we are launching the CRM and the SFE that comes with it, the next day I got a resignation letter from a person who we wanted the person to leave. And we were quite happy actually. We were celebrating that she was leaving because we knew that things were not being done right. So when you do these kind of things, the high performers will thrive because they enjoy the feedback that they're getting from the leader on how to improve. They don't see it as nitpicking and trying to micromanage.
Yeah.
And of course, that's the other thing. And no leader should micromanage their people.
Very true. So we spoke about the company culture, but there is also one factor, growth. So growth and development. So many talented professional, James, I have seen leave due to this growth. They don't see growth probably in that organization where they are working. So can you give us some strategies which the companies can implement to provide meaningful career development growth, which can help them to keep their best people engaged in their companies?
Yeah, that speaks directly to me, Anuj, because I have also left some companies because of lack of growth at all. And one of the best ways that a company can actually retain their people by helping them grow is actually succession planning.
Okay.
So when they have a succession plan, the first message they are telling their people is, look, you can grow in this company. And once they set up the succession plan, they need to develop these people to move into the next role and provide them the competencies. So as they are doing this, people are growing. But the other side of the thinking is oh, what happens if I develop them and I put them through all this growth,
Yes.
interventions and they leave?
Yeah.
But the question is, you got to ask the reverse question. And I think one of the famous management, gurus said this. Think about what if the person stays and they're not
Yeah.
developing? Do you want that kind of person?
Yeah.
Obviously not. So that's the reverse. So you might as well, develop them and help them grow, and they will stick around. And as long as they stick around, you will get the benefits of it.
So when you say
And
succession
that
planning,
will actually
sorry.
bring, sorry,
So,
that will actually increase your retention level
uh, you said about succession planning. So is it the succession planning of the leader or of the employee?
of the employee,
Oh,
Anirudh.
okay.
And I have personal experience in this, because there was a time in one of the organizations I was with, the turnover rate, Anirudh, you will not believe, was actually 30%. And once we implemented the succession plan, over the next 8 years, it was just 5%.
Oh,
So we had
okay.
a 95%, retention rate just by implementing the succession plan. And you may ask, did anyone leave? Yes, some people left, and
Yeah.
I was happy. I was happy when this person left because, um, as I mentioned, this was a vaccines company, and this product manager of mine was headhunted by a big pharma company, and she was, well, according to what she told me, she was paid twice what she was earning in my organization. And I was so happy for her. And I said, leave, please. It meant that what we are doing is right because somebody has poached your person. So you're on
Yes.
the right track.
So
So I,
true.
I feel yes, succession plan definitely is, and also it's a motivating factor, and people will stay because of that. And secondly, um, I had mentioned that one of the pieces of the five rights wheel is rewards. And one mistake a lot of companies do is they promote a person to the next role as a form of reward, which is totally wrong because you are just putting a person into a role that where they may fail because they don't have the
Yes.
competencies.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
you got to help them, help them
Mhm.
grow into that role, and then it should be fine.
Coming to the next point of leadership, James. So when I say leadership, it is at the management level. It is also at the, how do you say, team leader or the manager level in any organization. So what do you feel how a pharma leader can improve their own management style to get this loyalty and performance from the talent or from the people working there?
Okay. Now, Anirudh, I am smiling because you used the word loyalty, and that's now, a word that has got bad connotations, uh, where employers expect the employee to be loyal, but not the other way around.
Not really.
At the first sign of trouble, employees are just released.
Yes,
So, then the question is, how come you are not loyal to me? So
correct.
I won't look at that loyalty, but definitely in terms of performance, as long as a person is with you and they are performing, I think things are perfectly fine. So the question of how can leaders um, you know, provide meaningful career development. Was that your
Yeah,
question?
yeah,
No,
yeah, yeah.
it was how
Yes,
to inspire performance. Yeah.
yes.
So inspiring performance again is about engaging your people
Mm, mm,
over and over again. Everybody needs to be, engaged. Uh, and the word I use is coach. And there is this wrong thinking, Anirudh, where people think that only the underperformers need to be engaged, which is wrong. Because if you only engage the underperformers, then the high performers are going to feel that that the leadership is no longer interested in them. That you can do whatever it is, which is
okay.
totally wrong.
Okay.
So we got to show them that, so perception is also very important. That we got
Yes.
to show them that you are still important. That's why I am interested in you, how you're performing, and help you improve. So that's what they should basically do to inspire this performance, and then work on all the other areas, Anirudh, with regards to KPIs, training. So, as long as you are developing people, they will feel, yeah, the company values me. That's why they are recognizing me and they're sending me for all this training, development, all this kind of stuff. And I will stay because I am growing. As long as I'm growing, and if I'm applying to, let's say, other companies, first thing that's going to come to my mind, Anirudh, is how does that new company compare to
To
where I
the
am
company.
today? Are they
Yeah, yeah,
doing the same or they worse?
yes.
And therefore, this is one great way to um, you know um, hold people. Actually, the word hold is a four-letter word, actually.
Yes.
So, I won't say hold, but to retain, you know,
Yeah.
your top
So,
talent.
in the same line of our discussion, what we have just discussed, you have been coaching people or you have been coaching organizations. So, how do you see the financial incentives and versus the purpose or impact? How how to get the right balance between both of them to for people to retain in the organization?
Oh, Anu, that's an excellent question, about balancing financial versus
Yeah,
purpose.
yeah,
Now, my reverse question to anybody who is thinking about balance is why not both? Why not purpose and financial as well? It doesn't mean that you have to go broke while providing the financial rewards. And um, research also shows that most people leave not because of financial reasons. It's actually bad leadership. And I think Gallup is the one that had data which shows that up to 70% of people leave because of a lousy boss. You know, so that's very, very common. So it's not so much the money, but more about the purpose. Does the company help me grow? Am I growing in this company? Am I doing work which uplifts me, or am I doing work which is more robotic? Everybody wants to feel, empowered, that they have ownership in what they are doing. So if leaders can do that, Anirudh, then they're on the right track, and they don't really have to think about, rewards in the sense that, okay, how much should I pay this person? As long as they are providing financial benefits, which the person, the value provided to the person is much more than that, you can't go wrong.
yeah. True. I agree.
And this is why, Anirudh, it is very important to set the KPIs which are measurable, which are objective based rather than subjective, and try to put a monetary value for the KPIs or what this person is doing. For example, if I was working with a client years ago, and he had a logistics team, and we were cracking our head. How do we create KPIs for the drivers who are delivering goods? Can
Correct.
that be
Yeah,
done?
yeah.
And believe it or not, Anirudh, we managed to do it. In one afternoon, Anirudh, we actually got I think about 5 to 6 KPIs
Mhm.
with numbers there.
Okay.
So
Okay.
then they could, and then what they could do was based on those numbers, they can create what the value
Yeah.
of each driver's annual goal is.
Correct.
So they had
Correct.
a monetary value behind that.
Correct.
And then they can say, okay, am I overpaying? Am I underpaying? What
Uh-huh.
happens if this guy leaves?
Mhm.
What is the financial impact of that? So that makes things a lot easier.
Yeah.
And then you don't really have to worry about the balance issue anymore. And
Absolutely.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
also coming talking about compensation, Anirudh. Um, Today we can actually customize our rewards plan for each person, because we are all individuals. We Not all of us want monetary rewards.
Yeah.
Some of us like simple stuff like, hey, here's a voucher, take your family out for a meal somewhere. And that's a simple thing. It
Yeah.
doesn't cost you anywhere,
Yeah.
not that much anyway. And my advice, again, compensation, and this, do not reward anyone who has not performed, which means
Ah,
has not
okay.
reached their 100%. Do not
Mm-hmm.
reward them, because
Mm-hmm.
then the message you're sending is it's okay.
It's
Even if you
okay.
don't perform, you will get
Yeah.
something.
Very true. Very true.
So that's a
Excellently
huge
said.
error a lot of companies
Yeah.
make.
So coming to the last question of this podcast, James. what message would you like to give to the founders or to the managers in the pharma industry? Something which they can start from today itself, which will help them to retain the people in the good people in the organization.
Okay. So I would put it this way, Anirudh. In any business, whether it's pharma or non-pharma as well, there are only three things that will, drive or sustain your business. One is the product, or even the service business is the service you do. So product is one, your processes and your people. And my advice is focus on your people, always, because I think I don't know exactly who said this, but when you build people, your people will build your business. So your focus should always be on your people. And if you are an aspiring pharma founder, my advice is get your strategies on your people done first, and then your processes, and then your product. You know, so because once you have your people strategy, then you know exactly who to employ or who to outsource to, what kind of people. And even pharma founders who have started their company or they're growing, come back to focusing on your people, and you can't go wrong. And 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 to be honest, Anirudh, the five rights wheel, as I said, you for each role, you will need to set, the job descriptions. You got to set the KPIs, the training plan, the coaching frequency, and the rewards, and all that will take time. Especially even if you got 10 people, Anirudh, in your company now, it will take you probably 3 months to 6 months. And your question was, what should I do now
Yeah.
to improve the productivity? Very simple. All they have to do is, first of all, make sure that at least you get some basic, 4 to 5 KPIs done, which are objective in nature, which means measurable.
Okay.
And then on a monthly basis, start off on a monthly basis. Eventually, they can decide maybe they want to, shorten the interval of coaching, but do it on a monthly basis where they just ask three simple questions. Ask them what their goal is for that month or for the, quarter or whatever it is. Ask them where they are now,
Okay.
in terms of, that goal. So at least you can identify the gap. And then ask them, what are you going to do to close the gap? Or if they have exceeded the gap, what will you do to do even more? And that will immediately start boosting your productivity. It will start the engagement of your people, because they will feel, my boss values my input.
Yes. Yes.
So that itself is a motivating factor. So just do these three things while you're getting the other, aspects of your five rights wheel done.
Right.
And do this on a monthly basis, and you will quickly see who are the right people in your organization, and you will also identify who you may have to keep an eye on, and if they don't improve, then you may have to release them. But yeah, I just ask these three questions and you can't go wrong.
This is amazing. Very, very quick to add up, and anybody can do this right now. So yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So James,
Yeah, absolutely.
any
Anyway,
yes, any point you think we left out?
let me see. I would. Oh yeah, maybe one final example,
Yeah, yeah.
Anirudh. This was a company that I was quite recently.
Mhm.
Quite recent means not too long ago,
Yeah.
where they embarked on a coaching
Mhm.
executive coaching program, and the boss and I, we had a discussion. I wanted to have this coaching on the marketing, the chief marketing officer, but he said, no, I think let's focus on the chief revenue officer, who was actually the vice president of sales, because I felt the marketing person will make a higher impact. But he said, no, let's go with the sales person. So we did a 6 months, just 6 months, and it was 6 months coaching program, and this was stakeholder centered, which means all her stakeholders were giving her feedback and suggestions on how to improve. And this was a shock for me, Anirudh. I have never, not even in my own, divisions I used to head, but in this organization, within 3 months, Anirudh, what I saw was an improvement in the communication of everybody in the organization. And that's the first thing you will see, when you do things right. Everybody is transparent. There's open communication. People are not afraid of repercussions. They will tell the truth. And your company will definitely grow. And therefore, in 3 months, Anirudh, I have never seen this anywhere before. And it's so encouraging when you see things like this and okay, this works. But the difficulty here, Anirudh, is if anyone is asking, how much will the revenues improve? It's difficult to say because
Yeah.
you got marketing, you got supply
Yes.
chain. So which one is
Correct.
actually impacting that revenue growth is difficult to say.
So,
So yeah, that's my final piece of advice. Again, goes back to focusing on your people. So it requires three things, Anil: humility, courage, and discipline. Discipline to do the things over and over again because business is boring, yeah. Anirudh, we all know that. It's not as great as the movies make it because doing the same stuff over and over again is
uh,
boring. Humility to learn new stuff. Humility to embrace failure and not feel your ego damaged that you have failed, and courage to learn, basically. And what I would like to offer your listeners, Anirudh, is that they can actually download a PDF of this five rights wheel, which I have prepared. So I will provide you the link, and I think
I will share the
they
link.
just
Yes.
click on the link and download the PDF and just implement it.
Fantastic. It was fun to learn, James, from you, from your experience. Thank you for sharing all the valuable lessons. And it was amazing speaking with you. So let us do this podcast one more time on the topics which were not covered. And thank you again.
Thank you very much again, Anirudh, for this opportunity. I'm glad, and I hope listeners pick up a few tips here and there.
I'm sure they will.
Okay, Anirudh. Bye.